The rate of children born with autism spectrum disorder is rapidly increasing, and we don't know why. According to the Center for Disease Control, 1 in 110 children in the United States have autism. But what we do know is that raising a child with autism presents some real challenges, not just for the parents, but for the siblings, the grandparents, even the friends. Emily Colson's 20-year-old son, Max, was diagnosed with autism at the age of 4. Emily has pioneered an innovative communication system to help Max, and has authored a magnificent book. It's called Dancing with Max. Emily and her father, former special counsel to President Nixon, Chuck Colson. Chuck, Emily, so glad to see you here. Thank you very much for being here. Emily, first of all, Max was diagnosed at age 4. How did you know something was different or unique about Max, and did you suspect it even before the age?
Very much so. I could tell from the very beginning. He cried all the time, and he didn't hit any of those marks we look for with kids. He didn't crawl when he should have. He didn't walk when he should have. He didn't make any gurgling and cooing sounds. So it was clear very early that something was wrong.
What was the first reaction you had emotionally as a mother? I mean, everybody hopes their child's just going to be this perfect child and storybook life.
Right.
It wasn't a storybook life, was it?
No, it wasn't. And actually, I became a single mom when Max was just 18 months old. So on the heels of divorce, Max was diagnosed with autism. So no, this was not the life I had pictured. I thought I would have more kids. I just thought everything was going to go along perfectly. And it was a pretty dramatic shift.
Chuck, this was news, I'm sure, that was not only tough for Emily, but tough for you and your wife, Patty, when you first found out that Max was an autistic child. What kind of reaction did you have, and what did you even know about autism at that point?
I'd heard the term and knew nothing really about it at all. I was devastated because every father, as you well know, Governor, wants the best for his children, and especially your baby girl. So this was a hard thing for all of us, but I learned to marvel at her toughness in being able to handle it. She was willing to do anything to help Max, and I saw what you and I know as agape love. I saw a real sacrificial love. So in one sense, while it was a really tough experience for all of us with the family, it was a blessing, I mean a joy, to see how her faith grew and how she persevered to help one child, and then of course the wonderful story of what's happened to her life since. You know, out of the tough times, often, as you and I both know, come the best things.
I want to go back 20 years ago. Were you angry? Was there a time at which you were angry at God and yourself and the world and said, this isn't fair?
Well, when Max was about 9 and the autism was so severe that we could barely leave the house, we were hostages. That was really my toughest time. I would come downstairs every night, put Max in bed, hoping he would sleep maybe an hour or 2 hours, and I'd sit in this rocking chair and I'd stare at the wall because I really just wanted everything to stop. I wanted to stop feeling, and it was actually at that point that it all turned around, that I made a decision that I couldn't live my life that way. I didn't know how we'd survive another week like that. And I made this decision that I would wake up in the morning and say, this is my last day alive. And then I would believe it. And I did. The first day I did it, I was scared to death. I woke up and said, this is my last day alive. What would I do with it? Would I care if my son has a tantrum out? Would I care about the stares from other people? Or would I give my son the best day he could ever have? So we went out and we failed, and we went out and we failed. Failures and all, we just keep going back. The wonderful story about Max in our church, and it's so important to me because there are all these families that are home on Sunday mornings, and I don't think our churches realize how significant the problem is because we're not able to cross the threshold to get there to say, we need help. I started to bring Max back to church a few years ago. We'd been 5 years at home, and I thought, well, there was one thing he loved about church when he was young. He loved it to be over. So we went back when it was over.
You know, it's not just autistic children who feel that way, Emily.
Talking to old pastor.
So we went back at the end of church. We called it backwards church. And a man came up to Max and asked him to help stack chairs. So Max started helping out, and at the end of the service, he came back to Max and he put his hand on his shoulder and he said, Max, we could use you on the grunt crew. And that's the team that cleans up the church afterwards. Well, oh, he was so proud to be asked. It just took that one invitation, and for 6 years we went to Backwards Church, and Max became a central part of our church. Then this past fall something wonderful happened, because Max got a little braver and he crept into the church at the end. I was so proud of him, and I'm leaning over him saying, "Max, great job sitting, great job being in church." Well, the lights came up, the music ended, and Max shot out of his chair and started shaking hands with everyone saying, "Good job sitting, great job being in church." And I thought, now that is a greeter. So Max is now the first person people meet when they come into our church, and I think that says, oh, thank you. All are welcome.
How many of us can remember something that happened to us when we were 2 years old? You know what? Max can. And next we're going to see how this came through, and it happened 8 years later. Much more of this remarkable story when we come back.